Hi there, this is Lila, An Inquiry into Morals by Robert M. Pirsig, and I'm reading Chapter 10. Lila sat on the cabin berth and thought about the bad taste in her mouth from the coffee. There was something wrong with it. It was that rubbery taste in the water. That was bad, too. It was in the coffee, too. She didn't feel good. Her head still hurt, from last night. How much had she spent, she wondered. She didn't have much money left. Then she remembered he paid for most of it. Her head really hurt bad. God, she was hungry. At least she'd get him to buy her a big steak tonight, with mushrooms and onions. Oh, she could hardly stand it. Everything was all changed again. Yesterday she was going to Florida on the Karma. Now she was on this boat. Her life was really getting worse and worse. She knew it. She used to at least plan things a little. Now everything happened without any plans at all. She wondered where the Karma was now, and George and Debbie. He was probably still shacked up with her. She hoped they'd both drowned. She didn't even ask for her money back. She knew they wouldn't give it to her. She should have asked for it, though. She really needed it. She was getting that old feeling again. It meant trouble. She always got into trouble when she got mad. If she hadn't gotten mad at George and Debbie, she'd be on the Karma right now. She could have got George back. That was dumb to get mad at him. That just made things worse. And now she was mad at this new captain. She was mad at everybody these days. What was the purpose of that? There wasn't anything really wrong with him. He was just a dumbbell, that was all. All those dumb questions about Richard. She wondered why Richard had anything to do with him. Probably just someone he met, and she thought they were good friends. Maybe Richard would be in New York when they got there. Anyway, she was stuck with this captain now. At least until New York, or wherever they were going to stay tonight. She could stand him that long. She might need him when they got to New York. She watched him for a while over the top of the stairway. He looked like a schoolteacher, she thought, the kind that never liked her, like someone who was always getting mad at her for doing something she shouldn't. He looked like he'd been frowning about her for a long time. She had to get out of these bad feelings. She knew what would happen to her if she didn't. She ought to try going up one more time. She didn't have to look at him. She could just sit there. She watched the captain for a while longer, then braced herself, put on a smile, climbed the stairs to the deck, and sat down again. There, that wasn't so hard. She brought her sweater with her, and now she stood and put it on. It's gotten cool, she said. We're lucky it isn't any colder, the captain said. At this time of year you can't count on anything anymore. It's the wind, he added. Watch out for the boom. The winds are fluky in the river valleys like this. Where are we, she asked. We're south of Poughkeepsie, he said. It's getting a little more industrial now. You can see some mountains up ahead. I was watching you, she said. When? Just now. Oh, you frown a lot. You were talking to yourself a lot. That's the way Morris was. Who's Morris? A friend of mine. He would just sit for hours, not say a word. And I think he was really mad at me, and he wasn't mad at all. Some men are like that. He was just thinking about something else. Yes, that's the way I am, too. After a while, she saw there was all sorts of stuff floating in the water. She saw some branches and what looked like grass, and there was foam all around it. What's all that in the water, she asked. It's from the hurricane, he said. We seem to hit thick patches of it, and then it thins out for a while. It looks awful, Lila said. They were talking about it back in Castleton, he added. They said everything's been coming down the river. Trees, garbage cans, old picnic benches. A lot of it's half submerged. One of the reasons I'm using the sails is so we don't hit anything with the propeller. He pointed up ahead. When we get to the mountain up there, the wind will probably start doing funny things. We'll have to stop sailing and run the engine. Where he pointed, the river seemed to run right into some mountains. At a turn called Whirl's Inn, he added. A few minutes went by, and then she saw that far ahead, by a branch or something sticking up out of the water, it looked like some animal was floating with its feet up. They got closer, and she saw it was a dog. It was all swelled up, and it was on its side, with two of its feet up in the air. She didn't say anything. The captain didn't say anything either. Later, after they got it, she could smell it, and she knew he could smell it too. These rivers are like sewers, the captain said. They take all the debris and poisons from the land and carry them out to sea. What poisons? Salts and chemicals. If you irrigate land without drainage, it loads up with poisons and becomes dead. Nothing grows. The rivers keep the land clean and fresh. All of this debris is on the same journey as we are. Where? What do you mean? To the ocean. Oh. Well, we're just going to New York, she said. The captain didn't say anything. How soon will we be there? Lila asked. Tomorrow, unless something goes wrong, the captain answered. Are you in a hurry? No, Lila said. She really didn't have to get there at all. She really didn't know anybody to stay with, except Jamie and some of the others, but that was long ago. They were probably all gone by now. She asked, Is your buyer going to be there? What buyer? For your boat. Not me. I'm going to Florida. Florida, she wondered. She said, I thought you said you were going to sell your boat in New York. Not me. You said so last night. Not me, the captain said. It was Rigel. I'm going to Florida. You must have heard me wrong. Oh, Lila said. I thought Richard was going to Florida. No, I want to get south of Cape Hatteras before the end of the month, the captain said. But everything seems to slow me down. The full storms are in now, and these could pin the boat down for days. Florida, Lila thought. In Florida, the light was always golden orange, and everything looked different. Even the light on the sand was different in Florida. She remembered the beach at Fort Lauderdale, and the palm trees, and the warm sand under her towel, and the hot sun on her back. That was so good. You're going to go all by yourself? She asked. Sure. With no food? I'll get food. In Florida, there were all kinds of good food. Good seafood. Pompano, shrimp, and snapper. She sure could go for some of that now. Oh, she shouldn't think about it. You need a cook, she said. You don't cook. You need someone to cook. I get along, he said. Once she went shrimp fishing at night under a bridge with the lights, and afterwards they all cooked the shrimp and took it to the beach and drank cold beer, and there was more than anyone could eat. Oh, they were good. She could remember how soft and warm the wind was. And they were also stuffed. And they lay down under the palm trees and they drank rum and coke. And they talked and they all made love all night long until the sun came up over the ocean. She wondered where they were now, those guys. She'd probably never see them again. And the boats, she thought. The boats were everywhere. How long will it take you? She asked. A long time, he said. A month, maybe. That's a long time. How long have you been sailing like this? Since August 11th. Are you retired? I'm a writer, he said. What do you write about? Traveling mostly, I guess, he said. I go places and see things and think about what I see. Then I write about that. There are lots of writers who do that. You mean you would write about what we're seeing right now? Sure. Why would anyone want to write about this? Nothing is happening. There's always something happening, he said. When you say nothing is happening, you're just saying nothing is happening that fits your cliché of what something is. What? It's hard to explain, he said. Something is happening right now, and you think it's unimportant because you've never seen a movie of it. But if you saw 3 movies in a row of people sailing down the Hudson River, and maybe a TV documentary about Washington Irving and the history of the Hudson River, and then you got on this trip, you'd say, boy, this sure is something, because what you were seeing fits some mental picture you already had planted in your mind. Lila didn't know what that was all about. He said it like he thought he was pretty smart. She looked at him for a long time and wondered whether to say something, but changed her mind. She watched the water pass under her elbow. After a while, she asked, You want to have a really good dinner tonight? Sure, he said. I'll make it, Lila said. You will? We'll bring the steaks, and you just watch how I cook them. Is it a deal? You don't have to, he said. No, that's all right, she said. I can cook. I just love to cook. Cooking is one of my favorite things to do. She looked at the shirt he was wearing. There was a big food spot over the front pocket. She wondered how long he had worn that shirt. He hadn't changed shirts for days. I'm going to put that shirt in the laundry in New York, she said. He smiled a little. She thought some more about Florida. After a while, she turned to him and asked, Do you want to see something really beautiful? What? The captain asked. I'll show you, she said. She went below, got out her suitcase, spread it on the berth, and opened it. Inside one corner pocket was a bundle of papers with a red ribbon around it. She untied the ribbon and removed the colored pamphlet with Jungle Queen printed in big red letters across the top. Beneath it was a picture of the most beautiful boat in the world. Lila spread the picture out and carefully turned back one corner that had got folded over. She brought it up to the deck and sat down next to the captain and showed it to him. She hung on it hard so it wouldn't blow away. "That's the boat I was on in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, 3 years ago," she said, "with my girlfriend. See where the X is? That's where we used to sit. The boat looked like a great big beautiful wedding cake with 2 layers and covered with curly-cued frosting. On the front was the state flag of Florida. She knew everything about that boat, because she had been on it many times. The sky was sort of a pink and blue, with big cottony clouds blowing by in the wind. The boat left just before sunset, and that's how the sky looked. All the flags on the boat were fluttering in the breeze. That was the trade wind, and all around were dark green coconut palm trees waving in the trade wind, and the water was pink and blue all around the boat from the sunset, with ripples from the breeze. That's the way it really was. The picture looked so real you wanted to stick your finger in it and feel how warm the water was." The captain took the pamphlet in one hand while he steered with the other. He looked at it for a while, and then she could see he was reading the part at the bottom. She knew it by heart. "A must in Fort Lauderdale. World-famous original Jungle Queen. Acclaimed Florida's finest evening. Come aboard our new 550-passenger boat. Barbecue and shrimp dinner cruise, 7 p.m. Alcoholic beverages available. Make reservations at your hotel or motel or phone." His expression didn't change. He squinted at it like a doctor examining somebody. Then he frowned and said, "Do you know the owners or something?" "No," Lila said. "It's just a boat we rode on a few years ago." "That's a head boat," he said. "What's a head boat?" "Where they charge by the head to go cruising." "Of course," Lila said. She didn't understand why he was frowning. "But they don't charge very much. Open it up." The captain opened up the pamphlet to a big picture of the Jungle Queen. He asked, "Why is this so important to you?" "I don't know," Lila said. She looked up at him to see if he was really listening. "I can remember so many worlds," she said. "I'm not sure what I mean by that. But there are so many worlds, and I just touch them, and I'm in them for a moment, and then I'm out of them again. Things like my grandfather's house where I used to play, and my dog that I used to have. Things like that. They don't really mean anything to anybody else, except once in a while you can share them with someone." The captain looked down and read, "A Lauderdale tradition for over 30 years. The all-you-wish-to-eat dinner, the vaudeville show, and the sing-along have made it a must in Fort Lauderdale. There's nothing else like it." The captain looked up. "What's a sing-along?" he asked. "She was my favorite," Lila said. "Who?" "The woman who led the sing-along. She could have been my sister. I wish she was my sister. At first everyone was so stuffed with food no one wanted to sing very much. But she got them all going." "She's not like me at all," Lila said. "She had dark hair, really beautiful dark hair, and a beautiful figure. And she had what you would call a magnetic personality. You know what I mean? She really liked everybody who was there, and they all liked her too. She didn't act like she thought she was any better than anybody else. There was this old man sitting in the front of us, and he wouldn't say anything. He was just like you." Lila watched the captain. "So she sat next to him and put her arms around him and started to sing 'Put Your Arms Around Me, Baby' to him, and pretty soon he couldn't keep from grinning. She wouldn't let anybody sit there and act like they were all alone. You could see she was very smart. I mean, how quick she was to catch on to everything. One man tried to grab her, and she just smiled as sweet as if he had handed her a $10 bill or something. She said, 'You just save that for your wife, honey.' And everybody laughed, and he liked it, too. She knew how to take care of herself. She sang, 'Oh, you great big beautiful doll,' and 'Yes, sir, that's my baby,' and 'Nothing could be finer than to be in Carolina,' and lots of others. I wish I could remember them all. And all the time the boat was floating down the river through the palm trees in the dark, and it was beautiful. And she sang, 'Shine on Harvest Moon,' and the boat came around the corner of the river. The palm trees opened up, and there it was, a full moon. Everybody went, 'Oh!' See, she planned it that way, that she would be singing that just as they came around the corner." "Ugh!" The captain looked angry. "What's the matter?" "That's too much." "What's too much?" Lila asked. "That's all static," he said. "What's that?" "It's just cliches, one after another." He pointed to the picture of the Jungle Queen. "Look at all those smokestacks coming out of the top. Those are for a steamboat. That isn't any steamboat. They're just there to look pretty. They don't look pretty. A pretty boat doesn't have all that fake gingerbread and phony smokestacks." Lila took the pamphlet back. "It's a very beautiful boat," she said. The captain shook his head. Beauty isn't things trying to look like something else. He's something else, Lila thought. Beauty is things being just what they are, he said. There probably isn't one thing on that boat that's original. Why does it have to be original? That's play acting. It's make-believe. What difference does that make if it's what people like? He didn't have an answer for that. Disneyland's all fake too, Lila said. I suppose you don't like that either. No. How about movies, TV? That's all fake too, I guess, huh? It depends on what they do, the captain said. You must enjoy yourself a lot, Lila said. She folded up the pamphlet carefully. Arguing with him seemed to make the captain mad. He didn't want anybody to argue with him. He said, I suppose if the boat gave 3 million rights, they must be doing something right. But it's all, he shook his head, prostitution. Prostitution? Yeah, it's all taking the customer's money and giving him exactly what he wants and then leaving him poorer than when he started. That's what that singer was doing with those songs. She could have sung something original and left them richer. But she didn't want to do that because if she sang something they never heard before, they might not like that and might ignore her or turn on her, and then she'd lose her job and she wouldn't get her money anymore. And she knew that, and that's why she never said anything that was really her own, did she? She was just imitating some kind of person she was sure they liked, and they went along with it. That's why she's a hustler. They were paying her to imitate someone making love to them. Watch out, Lila, she thought. She was really getting mad. She was herself. He was the phony. How did he know what she was like? He wasn't even there. People should be themselves, he went on. Watch out, Lila, she thought. She was getting really mad. She was herself. He was the phony. How did he know what she was like? He wasn't even there. People should be themselves, he went on, not phony singers on a phony boat. Hang on, Lila. She smiled a little and said, I'm getting cold. She got up carefully and went back down inside the cabin again. There she let out her breath. God, that made her mad. Boy, oh boy. A smokestack, a big blowhard smokestack. That's what he is. Yeah, a big phony smokestack. That's exactly what he is. He thinks he's so smart. It's all over his face. And he's not smart. He's stupid. He doesn't know anything. He doesn't know what a hustler is. He doesn't even know how stupid he is. Lila opened her suitcase again, carefully folded the brochure, tied it together with her other things with the red ribbon, and put it in its special compartment, and closed the suitcase and locked it. Hang on, Lila. Never get mad at people like that, she thought. Don't let yourself get angry. That's what they want. Her hands were shaking. Uh-oh. She knew what that meant. She got out her purse from the berth, opened it, and took out the pills, got a plastic glass by the sink, and pumped some water into it, and then swallowed them. She had to do that quick or they didn't work. She'd been feeling the wave coming all morning. She'd been riding in front of it too long. She should have blown up at him. Then this wouldn't have happened. Smokestack. He looked at the picture like it was some kind of ant or something. That's what smokestacks like to do, just to prove how smart they are. She knew what they were like. Just when you start being nice to them, they turn on you like that. There's just one thing someone like him loves, to hear himself blow smoke. Well, that was that, she guessed. Nothing more to do on this boat until they got to New York, and then get off. Suddenly she felt cold. That always happened after her hands started to shake. She hoped the pills would work in time. Sometimes they didn't. She unlocked the suitcase again, took out another sweater, and put it on over the one she already had on, then closed the suitcase and locked it again, and put it away on the upper berth. It would be good to get back to living on land again, she thought. She was really done with all this boat life. It wasn't the way she thought it was going to be. Nothing ever was. She didn't have to put up with him one more night, but she didn't want to pay for the bus. On the ledge back of the berth was a radio. Lila opened it and tried to turn it on. It wouldn't work. She turned on all the switches back and forth, but none of them worked. Then she found a switch, and she could hear some static noise. It worked. There were lots of stations. One of the announcers said something about Manhattan. She listened for a while. They were very close now. Some music from one station was close and dreamy, the kind anyone could dance to. She just wanted to get to New York now. Would it be 4 years now? No, 5. 5 whole years. Where did they go so fast? Jamie would never be there. Just to see him again, the way he used to look, the way he used to smile at her when she was feeling good. That's all she wanted. And a little money, too. He'd be hard to find. She would have to ask around. Mindy might know. Perhaps she was gone, too. No one ever stayed any place long. She'd find someone who knew. She wondered what that old place looked like now. Once in a while, they would play an old slow one like that, and Jamie would go slow with it. The way he held his hands on her, the way he touched and handled her, it all came back with the music. She was a real princess then, but she didn't know it. Lila, she could hear him say, you've got something on your mind, I can just tell. What is it? And then after a while, she'd just tell him, and he'd always listen, and he'd never argue with her, no matter what she told him. She was crazy to leave. She never should have left. Even with 2 sweaters on, Lila was still cold. She needed a blanket. She remembered now that she'd had one when she woke up last night, but now it wasn't there. She got up, went to the front of the boat, took the blanket off the bed, and brought it back to the main cabin. The shaking of her hands was getting worse. It always happened after she got mad like that, and there wasn't anything she could do about it. She should have screamed at the captain, but it was too late for that now. When she could scream or hit somebody, or even just swear at them, then sometimes the wave would stop. She turned off the radio. She listened to the sound of the wind above and the lapping sound of the water on the hull. So quiet, so different from the Karma. She wondered what she would do in Manhattan. To get money. Waitressing, probably. She wasn't much good for anything else anymore. She'd find somebody. She always did. She wished the captain was different, and they could sail all the way to Florida together. But he was a stupid smokestack. He reminded her of Sidney. Sidney was the kind you always knew was going to be a doctor or a lawyer or something. He was always supposed to be so nice, but you could never talk to him really. He was always looking down on you, and he thought you didn't know it. That's the kind her mother always wanted her to pay attention to. The captain had the same expression, like he was always thinking about something. Sidney was a pediatrician now, making lots of money, and had 4 kids, she had heard. See, her mother would say. Oh God, not her. Why was it her mother appeared when her hands started shaking? The men her mother liked were always rich, like the captain here, and Sidney. They were the real hustlers, the women who marry for money. She shouldn't think that about her mother. She shouldn't think about her mother at all. It was coming. The wave was coming. The pills weren't going to stop it. The captain wasn't Sidney, though. He was something different, really strange, like he knew something he wasn't telling. When she danced with him last night, she remembered. It was like, at first, he was just an ordinary person, but then he got more and more, like he was somebody else. He got real light, like he didn't weigh anything at all. He knew something. She wished she could remember what he had said. He talked about some Indians, and he said something about good and evil. Why should he talk like that? There was something else. It had something to do with her grandfather's house. She tried to remember. Her grandfather always talked about good and evil. He was a preacher. Something to do with the captain, the way he looked at the dead dog and didn't say anything. No, he did say something. He said they were all going to where the dog was going. On her grandfather's wall, she remembered now, there'd been a great big picture in his living room, where a man was standing in a boat going across a river to an island. At the bottom it said something in German. Her grandfather said it meant Island of the Dead. That her grandfather was dead, and she always thought of him as going to that island, where Lucky was. Lucky met him when he got there. He was always talking about good and evil, and how she would go to hell for her sins if she wasn't good. The boatman was taking people across the river to hell, to the island, because they had sinned. Lucky, her black and white dog. He looked just like that dog today, floating with his 2 feet up in the air. Why did she remember it now? That picture burned up in a fire when her grandfather's house burned down. That's why God burned her grandfather's house down, to send him to hell. It was all mixed up. Nothing makes any sense, Lila thought. Nothing ever did, but now it was worse. Who was he, she wondered. Everything seemed so dreamy, like she didn't really belong here. There was something wrong with her. She knew there was, but nobody would tell her what it was. She listened to the wind. It was getting louder. The boat was tipping more and more on its side. Why was this river so empty? Why was this river so lonely? Weren't they supposed to be getting near New York? Where were the other boats? Why was the wind getting louder? The people along the bank of the river, they never made a sound when the boat went by. It was as if they couldn't even see the boat. A sudden gust of wind hit, and the boat rocked way over to one side, and Lila hung on and looked up through the hatchway, and she could see the captain. He couldn't see she was watching him, and his face was sad and serious, as though he was at a funeral, as though he was carrying a coffin. Something was wrong. Something terrible was coming. Something was going to happen. It couldn't go on like this. She could just feel it in her bones. It was coming. Seeing that dog like that in the water. It looked like Lucky. Why should he come back now? She knew they were coming to that place in the mountains. What did the captain say it was? End of the world. What did he mean by that? What did he mean? Lila sat back on her berth. She pulled the blanket up around her face and listened. All she could hear was the howl of the wind and the sound of the water against the side of the boat. Suddenly came a huge roar. She screamed.